Hi, and welcome back to Glassboxed, writing automatic Java tests. Today we are going to take a look at Xpath. We will look at what Xpath is, how to use Xpath and write Xpath expressions, the advantage and disadvantages of using Xpath, and how to make it reliable and maintainable when using it in our test scripts. So, what is Xpath? Xpath is a means of identifying an element on a page and allows WebDriver's Xpath locator to interact with page elements. If you want to learn more about WebDriver locators, then refer to my 5th video on WebDriver locators. Anyway, so Xpath can at first be a little confusing, but once you have learned a couple of rules of how to write Xpath expressions, it can easily become an essential tool and technique in writing well maintainable tests. So, if you remember, referring back to my 5th video, when we wanted to get various pages element, such as links or fields or buttons, we used certain information from the source of this page, such as ID attributes or name attributes and their values, to be able to fetch that specific element on the page and then interact with it or do something with it. So in the case of input fields, we populated them with the send keys method, or in the case of anchor tags or links, we clicked on them. So Xpath effectively allows us to get the same information, but by navigating to this particular node, as opposed to directly fishing for information inside a node. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just cover a few ways of navigating to a node using Xpath, and then we'll write a test only using Xpath. So what we'll do is we'll just keep this page open and we'll write some example Xpath expressions to demonstrate how one would use Xpath. So I'm just going to use Notepad. Right, so let's begin. Right, so each of these nodes are elements, and each node has, as you can see, attributes with values, more than one attribute, different types of nodes, and so on. And Xpath essentially just navigates from the top of the page to the very bottom, and we can use this to our advantage when writing Xpath expressions. So let me explain how Xpath actually works. So when we look at a node, say this node for instance, this has a parent node. In this case it's a TR node, and this node also has a child node. In other words, a H1 node. So if we take that into account, every node would have a parent node, all the way up to HTML being the high level parent. Whereas if we have nodes heavily embedded on a page, such as this node, this particular input node has no child, it is on its own, but it has various parents. It has a TD parent, which is then a child to table, which is then a child to form, and so on. So the way Xpath works is we have to give Xpath a series of parent and their child nodes in order to navigate to a particular node, and once we have the node in question, we can then use whatever information we want from that. So I'm just going to quickly give a few examples of how Xpath works using this parent and child node relation. Right, so let's just say we wanted to get the title of the page we're currently on. So if we want to get the title, the way we do it is, as far as Xpath is concerned, is there's a forward slash. This represents the root of the page, or in other words, when we just say forward slash, we're effectively here on the page, here on the HTML source page, and from there we can then navigate to where we want to get to. So let's just say we're trying to get here. This is where we're trying to get to. The absolute parent node of this particular page is HTML forward slash, and I know it's not necessarily indented correctly, but the head node is inside the HTML node. We would then say head. So once we've said this, we are now effectively here, or rather we're here. From here we can either pick the title or the link. So notice that the title and the link aren't embedded in each other, they're effectively on the same level. So if we say title, then we would then be around here somewhere. In fact, we would get this information. To go back to link, we would then have to either navigate from the head to the link, or we would have to effectively use the dot to go back a step. So what we're trying to achieve at the moment is just trying to get the title. So if we then say title, we now have this information here, or we now have this entire node mapped in this Xpath expression. So this is a really basic example in that we're trying to just get the title, and the way to get to it is you get the most highest parent node, in this case is HTML, followed by its child, which is also the parent of the title node, in this case is head, and then the title node, which is the parent of the head node. And this is a very basic example, but this is quite literally how Xpath operates. It operates on a parent to child relationship, and you keep on going down this this route using this relationship to navigate to wherever it is that you're trying to grab the information from. So this is an example. This particular expression here is an example of a full path to a node, if you like. But sometimes, well, okay, before going too far ahead, this is quite easy to understand. But if we're trying to say navigate to this particular node, you can probably imagine the number of parents one would have to write. I mean, the parent of this is TD, for that is TR, and then table, and then form, and then another TD, and then another TR, then a table, then a body, and then the HTML. And sometimes there are more tags in between that you can't really see, such as a tbody tag, for instance, which could appear as part of your test, but isn't necessarily here. But the bottom line is, if we wanted to map this entire thing out, it would be horrendous. It would, if we try to write it in a reverse order. Let's just say input is what we're trying to get to. Its parent is TD. So let's just say let's just say this is where we're trying to get to. This particular field. This is where we're trying to navigate to. So this has a TD, but on this route there are two. So if we just say TD, Xpath will get confused because on this same route there are actually two. So we need to now refer to it as a number, which we refer to using square brackets. This then has a TR, and again on this particular route there are several. So we need the first one. This then has a table, and then a form, and so on. So again, this is another example of a full path. But as you can see, this can become very convoluted very quickly, and this can also break very quickly. So let's just say we're just gonna jump right in. Let's just say although this doesn't actually represent our page because we've got several tables and whatnot embedded, but let's just say this was actually correct, argument's sake. And then let's say someone decided to add in another row to this table. So if you looked at the table here, so this has 1 row, 2, 3, so it's got various rows. So at the moment, the input field that we're trying to refer to here is in row number 1 of this form. But let's say someone added in a new row here. That now means, because that row's been manipulated, this doesn't refer to the input field we are trying to get to, i.e. this one. This would now refer to the second row. But because there's no way of us knowing when someone is going to add a row or not, it becomes a problem. And this is a really big disadvantage to using Xpath, in particular using Xpath with full paths, because it's really brittle, it can break really easily. So one way we can get around this is by using a particular annotation which gives us all nodes on the page. So if we did this, this is now effectively, as opposed to starting here, which is referenced by that, this means effectively get everything on the page. So now we can actually use this to our advantage. We can now say something like this, and what this does is this gets every node on the field on the page which is of type input. So using this approach doesn't really help, because this gives us everything, every input node on the page, and what that means is it doesn't give us the specific one we want, but it at least eliminates the brittleness introduced by using full paths. So if anyone wanted to add more rows, it wouldn't really matter here, it would just still pick up any other additional input fields. So this is certainly an additional string to our bow, in that this brittleness is removed by using this particular annotation, and this is effectively equal to select all nodes of whatever type. Now going forward, I mentioned that we've got various elements on a page of the same node. So in this case, let's just say we wanted to click on this particular link, the contact link. So if we just did this, this would now return us every tag of this type. So this is an anchor tag, so it would return every anchor tag on the page that we're currently on. So on this page I can only see 4 anchor tags, so this would only return 4, but it would return all 4 of these, and we're trying to click on the specific one. We can actually ask it by the number on the list that is returned using square brackets to get to a specific one. So if we said that, what that would do is that would now return us this node, because this is the 4th one in the list. So this is a means of getting a node by list number, if you like. Now what about if we want to say get something by some attribute value? So here we've got an attribute and we've got a value for it. What if we were trying to fish for something with some kind of information from inside a node? How do we do that? Well, Xpath provides us with a means for telling it what the name of the attribute is for a given node and the value that the attribute holds, again, for a given node, and we can do that quite easily. So if we did this, so let's just say we are trying to find this particular node. It's relatively quite easy. One we can do is just do this, and that would give us all the input nodes on the page, which is a good start. And then we can use this annotation here, the contains, which is another way of saying the current node that we're looking at, in this case is input, check that it contains, and then we check for whatever it is that we want to check for. So in this case, we're going to check for the attribute name, and to tell Xpath the attribute name that we're looking for, we use the @ sign followed by the value that the attribute is supposed to hold. So in this case, it's going to be email field. So by using this annotation, what we're effectively saying is get all the input nodes on the page and check to see that the input that I'm looking for contains an attribute with the value of name, and the value contained inside the attribute of name is of node field. So this gives it a little bit uniqueness in the sense that this contains method here is fishing to see the first match it finds, if any, from all the input fields, and then it returns us potentially one or more results. So in this case, since this is the only attribute with the value of email field on the entire page, it would return us this input node. So this is an example of getting a node with an attribute with a value. There are various other ways we can use Xpath, but these are potentially the most commonly used and easy to use and easy to understand ways of getting information. But more than that, it's also, if you like, the building blocks of understanding the more finer grains of how Xpath works in the bigger scheme of things. So what we'll do now is we'll finally move on to writing a really basic test. All we're going to do is we're just going to navigate to the contact page. So let me show you what we're actually going to do, so we don't need this anymore. Let's keep this minimized for the moment. So all we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the contact page, and we're going to fill in this field here, and that's it. We won't do anything else because everything else should be relatively straightforward. So let's do that now. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a new class. Let's just call it basic Xpath test. I'm not really going to bother with a before and after method here. I'm going to jump straight in. I'm going to create a new WebDriver. I'm going to navigate to our website. And now I'm going to use Xpath to click on the contact link first. So let's find out. Let's see what we can get from this. Right. So what I can see is the contact link has an ID of contact link. It's also an anchor tag. So let's just keep that in mind. It's of type anchor. If we get all anchor tags, looking from top to bottom, it's the fourth one. If we decide to use ID, it's got an ID of value contact underscore link. Right, so let's use this information to write our test. Right, the best way to write the Xpath for this, I think, is to get all the anchor tags and then fish for the ID. The reason why we're going to do it that way is because anyone can add in more links here, which could break the Xpath if we were to use, say, the number of the list. So instead of using numbers, what we're going to try and do is use the ID attribute instead. Right. So if we just take it into account what we know about the contact link, if we navigate to it using full path, we know that it could break one day if someone were to add in more anchor tags or more links. We know it could also break if we refer to it using a direct number as part of a list, because again, more people can add it. But we know that it has an ID attribute which commonly usually stays unique, so we can use that to our advantage. And we know it's an anchor tag as well. So what I propose we do is we find the element by using the anchor tags first, and then we fish for the ID attribute and then input its value, and that should be unique enough to A, get us the link that we want to get to, and B, make it maintainable in the sense that give us a little bit confidence that it won't break going forward. So let's do that. So we're going to use the /2 times to give us access to all the nodes, followed by the name of the node. Then we're going to use a contains to check the contents of the nodes which are given to us as part of the //. Then we're going to try and fish for the attribute. So in this case it was ID, and the value it had was contact underscore link, and we're just going to click on that. Right, so let's see if this works. Just going to right click, run as JUnit test. Okay, it's just starting up. So it's navigated and it hasn't clicked. So we've done something that we probably shouldn't have done. So let's have a quick look on what the issue could be. Ah, okay. I know what's happened. We've just got a syntactical issue, I think. That's what it's supposed to be, because it's a method that takes in an argument. So let's just rerun that. And it's clicked on the contact, and fantastic. Right, so it's worked. We manually closed the browser there, so what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to go drive to close, just to prevent me from having to manually close every time. I prefer to close it this way. Right, fantastic. So the next thing we need to do is, if I just go back, is when we're on the contact page, what we want to do is navigate to this particular field and put some information inside it. So let's just have a quick view at the page, at the page source. So we know it's this one because the text before it is enter name, and we know it's in a table. So we know this is the field that we're interested in. So this would be a really good candidate where we really shouldn't use full paths, because the number of things that could break here are just astronomical. So again, we can use a similar approach. We can just get all input fields and then directly then use the name field and its the name attribute and its value to be able to fish for the input field, and then we can interact whichever way we want. So let's give that a go. Right, so we know that the input field is of type input, and we know it has a name attribute and we know the value of the name is name underscore field. So again, we can just copy this and use that information. So it was type input field, and it contained an ID of type name, and the name of that, or the value of that attribute, was name field. And this time, as opposed to clicking to it, we're going to send keys to it, and we're just going to say test name. Right. So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so it's running. It's clicked on about contact and it populated the field, and then it closed the browser. Perfect. So we know it works. So as you can see, if we had used full paths, it would have been a bit brittle, and this is one of the biggest disadvantages of using Xpath, in that it can break very easily and very quickly. And it can be a nightmare when trying to fix these things, because if someone adds in multiple tables, you'd have to spend some time trying to figure out the paths. There's various plugins you can use to help you do that, but my view is you shouldn't really have to even handle such nuisance. It's just so much better if you just grab whatever information you want, specific information. That way, no matter who adds what, as long as your field isn't directly changed, or someone doesn't actually introduce elements on a page where it directly contradicts with your the nodes that you're looking at, then you should be fine. And that's it for this video, folks. If you enjoy my video and find that they bring some new knowledge or insight into writing WebDriver tests, then please subscribe and rate. If you have any questions, then please leave a comment below. Many thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao.